Entering the atmosphere in T minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Omega Metroid podcast from OmegaMetroid.com. My name is Andy Spiteri, joined by Doominal Crossing. Doom, it's just you and me this week, buddy. What's going on?
Yeah, our boy Dak, last week he just got himself a new job. Now he's packing his stuff up, getting ready to move out, so he's a little bit busy right now. Wishing you the best of luck, Dak. I know how you feel. I literally just moved in here a few months ago. It's a stressful process, but yeah, once it's all done, it's, one of the best feelings, just getting into a brand new place and, having all that complete. But yeah, otherwise, I've just been working this whole week. I'm sure you can relate to that, Andy. We're both pretty exhausted, but we're still here to bring you a killer episode today. And otherwise, just been modding some Super Smash Bros. Ultimate some more. Saw Deadpool, really enjoyed that. Definitely not my favorite movie of the year. There's a few others I think that top it, but I had a good time.
Nice. I haven't seen a movie, to be honest, in theaters since Furiosa, and there hasn't been anything that's really kind of drawn me in. So I don't know. I'm hoping for the next cool thing to come out. There was a couple movies that I wanted to see, but they were some smaller scale stuff like that I never got a chance to. But you know what? I did rewatch Godzilla -1 the other night. I finally got my wife to watch it. And golly, is that movie ever awesome! So if you haven't watched Godzilla, you should check it out. But I think we're down Dak this week and next because he's moving this week. I can't remember if it's his new job starts this week and he's moving next week or vice versa or whatever. But we're gonna be holding down the fort this week and delivering on that episode that we said that we were gonna last week. Really quickly, I wanted to just very quickly follow up on some of our conversation from last week about the, some of our cautious, let's just call it, small little nitpicks about that Metroid Prime 4 trailer. We had some people comment, particularly over on YouTube, and I don't know. I guess I was expecting I kind of went ahead and was like, listen, guys, this is very small stuff, nothing that I think anyone should really be concerned about or worried about or whatever. And there's a lot of people commenting that were a little bit more negative, I feel like, than I was anticipating that I would see about this. So I don't know. That just kind of stuck out to me. And I guess that, there was one person that was just the trailer just looked I don't know, amateurish. And I was reading that and I was like, I don't know, brother. I don't know if we watch the same trailer, man, because I thought that this trailer was awesome, those few nitpicks aside. I wanted to, number one, just say, hey, thank you for everybody that was commenting on it. Very cool. But number two, I guess I just wanted to reiterate, I know we talked about our critiques last week, but I think we're going to be in really, really good hands. It's nothing... in a worst case scenario, I think this is going to be a really good game that's kind of like Metroid Prime 3. And in a best case scenario, this is going to be one of the best games we've ever played, probably. So I think if your game exists somewhere in that scale, that's a pretty good place to be.
And yeah, when the quote unquote worst case scenario, for those who are not watching on video, I'm using very, very heavy air quotes on that phrase. When your worst case scenario is a game that's as good as Metroid Prime 3, I think we're all going to be in pretty good hands. Mm-hmm. Metroid Prime 3, again, my least favorite of the trilogy. I still think that's a solid 9 out of 10. Fantastic game. And if Prime 4 is able to match that level, that's all I need.
You know what? And I also saw this on the YouTube channel as well, a comment, and I think you know where I'm going with this, but I had someone back me up. Actually, our pal, the Metroid theorist, was like, listen, this Metroid Zero Mission soundtrack isn't all that good. I don't like it that much either. So there's at least two of us on the planet that are staunch in our critiques and criticisms there. So just wanted to point that out. So that was last week. And just wanted to put a bow on that. Just kind of say, and I think we talked about it last week, but listen, like we just said, I think we're going to be in really good hands here. So even our small critiques are just that. They're small. So I'm not concerned about the quality of the game. I think it's going to be awesome. The question is how awesome, right? And how what is the best possible version of this game, and when are we, or is that dual release coming? Is it dual release at all, etc., etc.? So I think we obviously need to wait for some answers, but we're going to be in good hands. And I guess I was surprised to see a little bit comments from people a little bit more sour than even we were, and I thought that we were reaching a little bit to be sour, I guess, or critical maybe is a better word. So I just wanted to put a bow on that before we get going on this week's episode. What we got going on is a little bit of a deep dive, a little bit of a history lesson here into everything we know about the hunter only known as Sylux, who obviously is going to be playing a pretty big role in Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. So we're going to dive a little bit into the history of Sylux, a little bit into the character, some of the backstory, such as it is. There's not a lot. And we also asked a couple people if they had any ideas or theories or really anything, like any opinions on what they were looking for out of Sylux in Metroid Prime 4. So I'm excited to kind of get going here, and we should just shout out here. We're going to be referencing some interviews. We're going to be referencing, we're actually on the Metroid wiki right now, so go and check that out if you're looking for some, some cool Metroid information, kind of a little bit of a different something than we do over on Omega Metroid. So it's a great resource, and that's going to be a lot of our kind of information that we're pulling from here. So I guess without further ado, let's get going on to the hunter only known as Sylux, because we don't have a lot to go on, but I guess we should start off with what we do have to go on. Doom, I wonder if you would be good enough to give us maybe just a brief synopsis or history about Sylux, and maybe Sylux's origins and anything else, and we'll kind of start from there. And maybe we'll go in world, and then we'll maybe pivot to quote unquote real world after the fact, if there's information about him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so Sylux first appeared in Metroid Prime Hunters, released in 2006 for the Nintendo DS. And technically, in kind of a way, sort of ish, you can see an early design of him in the Metroid Prime Hunters first hunt demo. When you complete the end of Regulator mission, you see some shadowy figures of some of the I guess pre beta designs, if you will, of some of the hunters, but they're all shadowy. We don't get like a real good look at them.
Right.
And one of those is what ends up becoming Sylux in Metroid Prime Hunters. I believe one of them is Noxus, and I can't remember what the third one is, but yeah, 3 of them show up in that background. So yeah, that's kind of the first introduction, but the real introduction we get to Sylux is Metroid Prime Hunters, which is actually canon, unlike the first hunt demo. And basically, as you alluded to, we don't really know a lot about Sylux, but what we do know about him has been fairly intriguing for nearly 20 years now, since Hunters. And pretty much everything we do learn about him, it's can be quickly summed up in pamphlet and release material. We don't really learn a lot about him in the game itself. It's more so that marketing material of where we get a lot of that information about Sylux. And it's basically the main point about Sylux is that he hates the Galactic Federation. He is a Federation hater, and by association he hates Samus Aran as well. And that's kind of been that big focal point push, because out of all the hunters, most of them kind of have their own original backstories that aren't really tied into Metroid lore, but Sylux and Weevil are the 2 hunters that do have ties that, go back into the main Metroid story. Weevil was, of course, an injured space pirate back from Zero Mission, and then Sylux, of course, with his Galactic Federation hatred. And so those 2 have always been, kind of the big hunters that, fans have wanted to see get involved in the series. And so that started in Metroid Prime Hunters, and then also some other, going into his hatred of the Federation. Pretty much all of his equipment that we know about is all stolen Federation prototypes as well. So
very cool detail.
Suit,
I love that.
His suit, the lockjaw, his alternate form, and the shot coil, his main weapon, all of those are stolen Federation prototypes. So it also kind of gives some fan theories, like, was Sylux a part of the Federation at one point? He's so familiar with their technology, and then we'll kind of go into that further as we see Sylux more into the storyline. But that's kind of our first introduction to Sylux.
One thing, sorry, I'm going to interject like super quickly here, just to put something out there into the world as well. We're referring to Sylux as he and him, although in the original, I want to say it was Smash Bros. Brawl, where they had the Sylux trophy. I want to say that their pronouns were they and them in Brawl, but we've checked a couple different spots here, and everywhere lists Sylux as a male. We don't know that for sure, but what I think we're gonna do, we'll try and just use he, him, or they, them, whatever. We'll try and make sure that we try and do this properly here. But if we use them interchangeably, that's in any that's incorrect. That's on us. So apologies there. But we'll definitely try our best.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I kind of colloquially refer to Sylux as he, him, but we really don't know. We don't know, like, what sex or gender he is at all. We don't even know if, it could be a robot for all we know. I don't think it's a robot, but yeah, like there's, again, that's how much is unknown about Sylux, and so I think we're going to be talking more about that later. I know we had a fan question that's kind of in relation to that as well, so we'll definitely talk about that. But that's pretty much covers the basis of what Hunter's introduced us, and that's the kind of the core information of Sylux's character that we actually know about. And then what we now know is Sylux was seen again the following year in Metroid Prime 3 Corruption, though we didn't know it at the time, not for sure at least. And I'm of course talking about the 100% cutscene that you get after collecting every single missile expansion, energy tank, ship missile, yada yada yada, energy cell, you name it. Yeah, you get a 100% cutscene. Samus flies away from Skytown, and then just in the back you see a ship with a design we've never seen before, but kind of looks similar to the Delano 7, which is Sylux's ship from Hunters. And we see it just chase after Samus, and that's all we get. And that's kind of all we had. That's all we had to go off of for years. And then, of course, after Metroid Other M, we had, the second great Metroid drought. And then the release of Federation Force, which we've covered several times on this podcast. But Federation Force is actually where the story picks up off, because before the game came out, Kensuke Tanabe was doing a few interviews, and we've actually referenced these in relation to Prime 4 because of how relevant they are. But he referenced a few things. One, that he was interested in doing a mainline Metroid Prime sequel that involved time travel, which again we've talked about previously on the podcast, and he also mentioned that he was really interested in Sylux as a character and wanted to flesh him out and, turn him into a real threat in the Metroid universe. And that's something that the fans have been wanting as well, just because, again, he and Weevil are like the two that like really connect closely to the Metroid universe. And so hearing that, a lot of people were, granted, we were rock bottom. We just got Federation Force, but that was like a little bit of optimism to look out to on the bright horizon.
I honestly think that made Federation Force almost worth it right there for that one extra credit scene. Because, like, and we've talked about this ad nauseum, but just to quickly reiterate, I would say that my personal thoughts on Federation Force are that it's like a mediocre game. It's not a travesty by any means. It's not like Legend of Zelda Triforce Heroes bad, but it's certainly not like your pinnacle standard of Metroid games. But I honestly think that, like, and I'm assuming that Metroid Prime 4, as we'll get into in a little bit, is going to be heavily leaning into this cutscene that happens in Metroid Prime Federation Force. And if it references that, which I'm sure that it will, I almost feel like that game's existence is now justified. Now, unfortunately, that also means, if that's canon, that the whole Samus Morph Ball capture thing is also canon, which...
Just a bad dream.
The less we talk about that, the better. But, I do think that that's kind of a cool thing for, to take away from Federation Force. And I want to say it wasn't even that long ago, like maybe 2 years ago, that we found the full kind of chibi character model of Sylux from the game. Kind of cool.
Yeah. It's so I haven't even talked about the cutscene yet. I was just talking about Tanabe, before the game came out, talking about how he was interested in doing a mainline game, reintroducing Sylux. The following year, Federation Force did come out, and like you just said, I believe if you capture 2 of the Metroids in that one mission during the last third of the game, that's how you get the cutscene, if I remember correctly. But you get a bonus cutscene that shows, again, technically not a hard confirmation, but something that looks like Sylux because of those spiky shoulders that a lot of people latched onto. Something that looks like Sylux stealing one of the Metroids that we'd rescued from that mission and hatching it, presumably to do some very villainous things with it. And so that was kind of all we had to go off of up until the Metroid Prime 4 trailer, where we finally for the first time see the Sylux armor again. Redesign looks cooler than ever, and of course is trailed by two Metroids, which I'm sure all of us agree has a lot to do with that Federation Force cutscene.
Yes. So very cool implications. Just a great scene, a great reappearance for the character in general, and I think it's probably fair to say that, like, for all intents and purposes, Sylux will be treated as more or less a new character in Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, but there is a bunch of different things to go back on when referencing Sylux, and we can maybe get an idea of how this character, I guess, fights, plays, all that kind of stuff, by looking at some of the games that he's been in previously, and then again, we'll get to some theories and whatnot after. I was thinking that maybe story-wise, because I feel like we pretty much touched on everything that we know here, and Doom, you're certainly more informed than me in terms of like gameplay stats, everything like that, but maybe we could talk a little bit about some of the gameplay that the limited gameplay that we've seen from Sylux, specifically obviously in Metroid Prime Hunters.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's actually something I want to touch on, because we were actually having a conversation with one of our new members in the server, Detective Emio, about whether or not Sylux's character is going to be retconned or not, from where we initially saw him versus the brief little thing we saw in Prime 4. And I don't necessarily think, I mean obviously you could retcon it to some degree, but I don't really think there's enough information to actually retcon,
Well, I almost feel like there's no need to, because you're right.
Yeah.
You know so little. Like, what do you need to retcon?
Yeah, well, the particular thing that they were talking about is kind of Sylux's role as a tracker. And this is one of those things where, going back to Prime Hunters, where in the marketing materials, I can't remember which one specifically, but some of them mentioned Sylux's, specialty as, in espionage and tracking, if you will. We can kind of see a little bit of that, particularly in Prime 3, might be the best example with that cutscene where it shows him just kind of off of the distance, or even Federation Force, where he's clearly trying not to be seen, even though he's wearing a bright blue and neon green outfit. I'm not sure how that works, but hey, bird magic.
what you're referring to looks like the trophy from Smash Bros. Brawl, by the way. Quote, a skilled marksman and bounty hunter experienced in espionage skills such as scouting and tracking. While much of the background remains a mystery, it is clear that it hates Samus and the Federation. Sylux uses the shock coil, an experimental Federation-made weapon that can continually drains energy from enemies and refills its own. So,
yeah, and that shock coil, that's actually but yeah. So the thing is, before I talk about the shock coil, because I would really like to see that again in Prime 4, but I think the qualm they had is that they kind of envisioned Samus as not Samus, as Sylux as this kind of sneaky espionage tracking type of character that like kind of waits in the background, doesn't bring up too much attention. Whereas in the Prime 4 trailer, they're busting open this wall, they're styling, throughout the Federation, just walking, doing the stuff, doing the hater poses.
They got the guitar riff.
Oh yeah. Very, very not subtle at all. But I don't think it has to be one or the other. I think,
I agree.
I think depending on the situation, Sylux can adapt. And again, we can go back to Metroid Prime Hunters. It's itself. Sylux is also very much not very much not sneaking in the background in that game. He's very much stands out in the open, lures Samus to where his ship is during the boss fight. Even during the end of the game, where they're all trying to. They're all freeing Goria because they think they're about to get the ultimate power. Like, he's not exactly, he's just standing there with the other hunters just trying to blast it open. So again, I don't think it really matters, No,
you can be skilled at espionage and tracking and still lead a bombastic charge. I mean, look at Solid Snake, that's a perfect. Look at our King Aragorn. Like he was a tracker, he was a ranger, and Yet this man is leading the armies into the Black Gate. So I certainly agree with you. I don't think it needs to be retconned, anything like that. I think you can have, in this scenario, your cake and eat it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of I know it was being tongue in cheek when I said, bright blue and neon green uniform. I actually do kind of, if they do tap into a little bit of that, I do kind of want to see like how does a blue and neon green suit, like how does that become like more of an espionage type of outfit? Does it come equipped with like a cloaking device? Is that something we see later? That's just pure speculation on my part. I have no idea if they even do go that route, but I don't know. It's dumb stuff like that I think about. But going back to the shot coil though, this is a really cool weapon in Hunters. It's definitely it's the reason why Sylux became my multiplayer main, just because of the shot coil alone. But basically, it's not like your traditional beam weapon where it fires projectiles. It fires a continuous energy stream, and you have to be close to the enemy in another for a connection to like actually connect with the other person. It's an electrical current, and if you're not like facing them, then it'll just put out like sparks. You have to actually be facing them to create the current. And then once you start holding it for a long period of time, it'll start rapidly draining their health. And if you're playing as Sylux, it'll also replenish their health as well. And so it's just an absolute blast to use once you fully master it. You basically turn into like a vampire almost, but in a cool way, not a lame way.
Or like a Metroid, because it's not dissimilar to what a Metroid does. For anybody listening to this that maybe hasn't played Hunters, imagine the I forget the actual name of it, but the power up that you get in Metroid Prime 3 Corruption, where you can essentially fire off your grapple beam and you can either power up or suck power away from consoles. Now I don't believe that you get to do that to enemies necessarily. Maybe you do actually. Maybe I need to correct myself there, but it is a pretty cool weapon, and it's unique. Like that one and Trace's basically is like sniper rifle are the ones that kind of stick out to me as kind of the takeaways. And my experience in Hunters is certainly more limited than yours, but I did remember those from back in the day playing and thinking like, man, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, so the grapple voltage in Prime 3, that's what that is. And I can't remember if you can use that on enemies. I know the hyper grapple though, when you're in hyper mode, that you can use on some of the phase-on enemies. So,
I'm pretty sure you can use it on some enemies, actually, but I don't know if I did a whole lot, because I don't know how effective it was. Certainly not as effective as a shot coil, that's for sure.
Yeah, and so, obviously, we see Sylux, and you touched on kind of the chibi Sylux that eventually we did see. Someone was able to rip into the game files and saw that, and it looks very different than what we originally saw in Hunters. And so a lot of us thought like, okay, well, it's a first person cutscene that we're not meant to see. Is this just like kind of a temporary model, or is this like actually kind of the direction that the Prime 4 Sylux is going to take? Well, now we know, no, that is not at all the direction they're going. No, it is very much, it's a modern take on Sylux, but it's still you can still see those Prime Hunter roots very much still, at the forefront of that design. And with those Prime Hunter roots, I'm really hoping that we see a Prime 4 shot coil and see how that is utilized in the modern age. Maybe, there's more features of that shot coil that, we don't know about, some other, other hidden functionalities of that he can use against us, or maybe we can even use against him.
Yeah, that would be so awesome. Like that would be really exciting, because I'm jumping ahead here, but I don't know. I can't get the idea out of my head that maybe we're going to be playing as Sylux in Metroid Prime 4, but we'll get there. Yeah, and not only that, but I think that of all of the different hunters in the game, I always thought that the Lockjaw was kind of cool. Like, so every hunter basically has their own version of I guess, the morph ball, and like each one of them is effectively the same, and they all have their little perks and differences and what have you. But I always thought that the design of the Lockjaw was just, I don't know, it always stuck out to me as being really cool. If you've ever went to OmegaMetroid.com, actually, you'll see that the Metroid Prime Hunter section of the website has the Lockjaw as its little icon there. So it's always stuck out to me as just being something that caught my eye. I don't know if there's any special properties about it that are necessarily different. I think it might be faster a little bit, but that's I just thought that it was pretty cool.
Well, I believe its base speed is faster than the morph ball, but the morph ball can get faster with the boost ball than it.
I see.
But it does have more controllability though because of its hovering probability properties. Whereas the morph ball is still, it's limited to, to real physics and gravity and stuff like that. The lockjaw, it's able to like cut corners and, make very quick turns like on a dime. And so it's really, really cool for doing tricky maneuverability and stuff like that. Which also comes in handy with its trip mines, which is really fun for ensnaring players, especially if you get a triple trip mine, which does so much damage if you're able to lure a player just right.
This is a cool name too, Lockjaw. Like that's just, I don't know. It just sounds, there's something just about a cool name that goes a long way. So very cool. That's what we've seen from a gameplay perspective with Sylux. I don't know if you have any more to add in particular to his actual like multiplayer functionality. It suggests that Sylux excels in more close quarter one-on-one combat versus like a wide, firefight, if you will. I don't know if I would confirm or deny that. I don't know if you could.
We have a lot of information to go in that regard, because most of our interactions with Sylux have either been, him just kind of stalking Samus in the background or literally fighting us one-on-one. We really haven't gotten a lot of, until Prime 4, we really haven't gotten, him working with a team and seeing what he does, like, with a squadron of allies. We haven't really gotten that yet. So I have a feeling we'll see a bit more of that in Prime 4, but, and I'm sure, and I mean, it's Sylux. He's going to play a role. I'm sure that we're going to see that he's a threat to be reckoned with, at least on our first playthrough. Maybe not the 5th, but.
Well, yeah, we'll see about that. It depends on what kind of dread mode they introduce in this game, but that's I really we're limited in what we know about Sylux in terms of story. We know a little bit more gameplay wise, but even then, again, not a ton of information gameplay wise, other than what is essentially based on an almost a 20-year-old game now at this point. So we're very much looking forward to seeing him reappear in Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, and I think that we're going to get a ton of our questions answered here, and maybe even before that, maybe we'll get some information here about Sylux. There's a couple of different, just to kind of put a bow on the in-game lore, I guess here. There's a couple of different quotes, I guess, from various places, Nintendo Power, Smash Bros. They all say roughly the same thing. I thought that this line actually was kind of cool from the Metroid Prime Hunter's Manual, where it says, Sylux is a resourceful tracker and a deadly sharpshooter. I thought that was a neat detail, because you don't necessarily see that a ton in the actual game itself.
Like you were talking about earlier with the Imperialist, like when you think of sharpshooting, you think of Trace. He's the sniper character in that game, and so I do agree. It's really interesting that they use that word for Sylux, even though that's not really what he's associated in that game. Again, could just be a marketing guy, just kind of scribbling something down, or maybe it was something they really thought through. I think it's kind of the former, not the latter. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, so there's a couple other pieces actually that stuck out to me as well that I thought were kind of cool. Nintendo Power, Sylux can deploy blades that travel along beams of energy, so obviously the lockjaw, but just, I don't know, hearing that description I thought was pretty cool. Metroid.com just kind of reaffirms the fact that all that we know about Sylux, that he hates the Federation, so that's been the one consistent with Sylux in pretty much every single little blurb of information that we have about the character. So obviously that's going to be a pretty big part of his story here going forward. But this one I thought was very cool, actually, and kind of a nice little hint about some things to come. This is from the Metroid Prime Hunter official Nintendo Player's Guide. Sylux may well be Samus's equal, resourceful, efficient, and infinitely patient. The mysterious hunter has been tracking Samus secretly for days, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. So, indeed, we do see that at the end of Metroid Prime 3 Corruption. That ship is tracking Samus, and Samus has no idea. So I'm really intrigued by someone that could be an equal to Samus in terms of bounty hunting, because we haven't necessarily seen that in the series. We've seen Ravenbeak, who is certainly a physical equal of Samus, but a different style. We've seen Dark Samus, who's kind of this alternate version, and of course SAX. But I think that Sylux is going to be something a little bit different than all of those guys, and different, but in the same kind of like dark reflection kind of way. So I'm excited to see what that unfolds and continues to be as we get more information. That's pretty much all that we know from Sylux in the game, unless I've missed anything.
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up, and I agree with you. I really like that thought of Sylux being not necessarily like a dark echo of Samus, like a dark Samus or a Ravenbeak or something like that, but again, someone who is just as skilled in that profession and is just as deadly, but has their own unique twists, their own strategies, their own point of view and how to turn the tides. And so there are equal, but they're still doing things way differently. And so I think I'm really intrigued to see how they play off that. One last thing I do want to touch on is our friends over at Shine Sparkers. They interviewed the Metroid Prime Hunters director at NST previously, Richard Verodi, and he said that he actually did have a backstory in mind for Sylux. And so whether that backstory will be referenced or play a role in Prime 4, obviously we have no idea, but I think it's pretty interesting that he already had something in mind for Sylux for all these years.
Yeah, and to elaborate there, Richard had said that he, quote, knows Sylux's true identity. So the inference for that is that the identity is something to be revealed, and that's going to be kind of a major thing that might occur in the game. There's lots and lots and lots of speculation, which we'll get to a little bit later in the show, about who, what the story with Sylux is. So he said that, and he also said that hey, he thinks that Sylux might have been Tanabe's favorite of the bounty hunters, which I mean makes sense since he's the one that's reappeared in multiple games at this point. So and funny enough, like a lot of different games, like other than Samus and I guess Ridley and maybe Mother Brain and Kraid, like Sylux has got to be in the most games of anyone else in the series. I can't think of anyone else at this point that has 3 or more games in the series.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, probably. I mean, aside from Dark Samus, maybe, but yeah.
Even Dark Samus really is only in Prime 2 and 3. I mean, technically Prime 1, but not really. Now, of course, it's in small roles.
If we're counting post-credit scenes, like, I mean, we're already saying Prime 3 and Federation Force. So
okay, I guess we can allow that, but even so, like that's a pretty cool, I guess, little feather in Sylux's cap. And obviously we know that there's going to be a 4th game that Sylux is going to be involved in. So that's that already puts him ahead of where Dark Samus is at. So lots of mystery, lots of intrigue, lots of rumors and speculation about Sylux. We really don't know a whole lot, but we've pretty much laid out everything that we do know. Now, we knew that we wanted to do an episode about Sylux, his origins, backstory, all this stuff, but we knew that we weren't going to have a ton to go off of. So we decided that we wanted to open up and get maybe some other people's opinions, theories, what they want to see, what they don't want to see, all that kind of stuff. So we have a few that we'll read off here, and that'll kind of take us to the end here. But I guess first and foremost, Doom, we should do what we want to see, like what you and I want to see. And we've kind of touched on this in some previous episodes, but maybe just to put a bow on this until we know a little bit more about Sylux. I'll throw it to you first. Like I guess in terms of Sylux, like what are you hoping to see? And it could be anything you want, from story-wise, gameplay-wise, anything like that. I think that like what the big thing is the identity of Sylux. I think that's kind of been like the forefront of all the speculation. So I don't know, maybe we could start from there, and then just I'll give it to you, and then I'll kind of tell you what I want to see, and then we'll get some listeners involved.
Yeah, this will probably be indicative of my thoughts to some of the questions we're about to get it, or some of the theories we're about to get into. I personally hope that Sylux is someone we've never heard of before. I hope he's an original character I don't care if he's male, female, non-binary, robot, whatever. I just want him to be an original character that we have never been introduced before. I don't want it to be Samus's long lost brother. I know we've made fun of that dumb fan theory for a while, but like man, that would be such a buzzkill if it was like actually like they did like an Ian Malkovich or something ridiculous like that. Yeah, I think Metroid. I think when you tie things that close together, I think Dak has talked about this before, it shrinks the size of the universe down, and Metroid is a vast universe, and I want it to maintain that vastness. And I think, with someone like Sylux, there's so much potential with him. I feel like it would be a disservice to just, I mean, he already has enough ties to the Metroid universe with his, with his Federation ties. I don't think you need to like also be like, oh, he's actually also a related family. And it's like, no. We don't need to do any of that,
Yeah.
Like he's able to stand on his own. So I hope they do that. In terms of the actual story, I'm actually kind of going to this just not really speculating about the story at all. I know some people are like, trying to theory craft where they think the story's going to go. Other than like the time travel stuff, I'm just kind of, sticking on the outside. I'm not trying to.
I really,
like, at least
I
for me,
don't think there's going to be time travel. I think it's alternate universes. I really do.
Regardless which it is, because at least for me, if I feel like I get too invested into a story idea that I really like and it doesn't turn into that, I feel like I'm just going to end up disappointing myself. And so rather than doing that, I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to stay on the sidelines. I'm not going to have any expectations of the story going in, and I'm just going to mostly accept it for what it is. Again, unless they do like a ridiculous like Ian Malkovich or something dumb like that. But
yeah,
I feel pretty confident they're not going to do that.
I think I mostly agree with you. My preference would be to have a new original character, but maybe, and I don't know exactly how they could do this, but maybe they could reference something that's happened before in the Metroid universe. And so I think I pitched this on our Prime 4 plot ideas and speculation, all that kind of stuff, but I think it would be kind of cool if like you had the character of Sylux and it's a new original character, but like maybe and I don't know, I'll just throw this out there as like a really cheap, quick, dirty example because I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but like maybe it could be a character whose homeworld was attacked by a Leviathan and Samus didn't get to save it in time, and now that world is completely destroyed, and maybe Sylux resents the fact that the Galactic Federation prioritized the other planets, whatever, right? Like the point is that something happened that you know of to shape this character and who he is, but it's a new original character. I think that would be my ideal perfect version of who and what Sylux could be. But and if that doesn't happen, then frankly, I'd be totally okay if the game just invented that scenario. So like, for example, we kind of talked about, a couple weeks ago, like maybe the Federation could have done something, conducted an experiment or whatever, maybe accidentally wiped out an entire planet. Maybe that's where Sylux is from. I think that would be engaging. And I think it's actually funny because in the Prime series, the Federation is, for the most part, still pretty stand-up organization. You haven't really seen that dark underbelly with it, where that's certainly been explored more in the 2D series. And it would almost make more sense to have Sylux kind of going after the Federation in the 2D series than it might be in the Prime series. And again, we don't know when this takes place. We're assuming it takes place after Federation Force, probably a good assumption, but maybe it doesn't, who knows. But I think that would be my ideal version of like the Sylux character and seeing where that came from. I have to admit, if Sylux is Joey or, Timmy Aaron or Ian Malkovich or, Samus's long lost lover, I might have to shut off my Switch too at that point, because like that would be, I mean, I'd finish the game of course after, but for the day I'd be like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. That would be tough.
That would have the potential to be up there with some of the worst Metroid Other M moments, or even
I think it might be worse.
Or even the final battle of Federation Force. It actually could potentially be, and honestly, that's why I have a feeling they're not going to do that. It's just because when you say it out loud, it just sounds so goofy and melodramatic. It sounds like a soap opera.
It does, and I wouldn't be like terribly offended if it was like Like, you just said that the universe feels small when you just kind of have the same reoccurring characters and whatnot, and that kind of makes me think of like Star Wars a little bit, like the newer movies specifically, where like everybody's a Skywalker or a Palpatine or whatever. I wouldn't be terribly offended if we found out that like, oh, okay, maybe we knew Sylux before and he was somebody. I can't think of who off the top of my head, but like the Ian Malkovich, the like that would be brutal. Or Samus's brother, I think that would be brutal. And then there's really no good reason for, if it's Samus's brother, for them to hate the Federation, or at least not that we know of so far. So yeah, I hope that doesn't come to fruition. One thing I will say, I really hope that we get to play as Sylux. I really want to. I think it would be awesome. Whether it's a DLC mission, whether it's a bonus something, whatever. I think the precedent is there. We've played as Sylux before in multiplayer and Hunters. The weaponry is there. I think it'd be really cool. I think it would be, and kind of nice to play a Metroid game as a character not Samus in a game that's not Federation Force, which, I think the Sylux scene aside, most people would agree, I wish we could have that one back and do it over. So I think that it would be really, really special to play as Sylux.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think we're gonna play as Sylux, but I agree. Like, I think there's a lot of potential there. I think it'd be pretty cool. Like, to me, when I think of like playable Sylux, I think of like, an expansion almost. Kind of like
maybe, yeah.
Yeah, kind of like Xenoblade had that like Future Redeemed DLC, where it's like it's not a full game, but it's still like a pretty meaty game. That's kind of what I see like a Sylux campaign being. It still has those Metroidvania elements, but it's it's self-contained. Maybe it's happening parallel to Metroid Prime 4. Maybe and so you could play into that, but it's kind of its own standalone thing that doesn't really you have the main base campaign, that's all Samus, but then you have the Sylux, and that's its own standalone thing. And but yeah, I'd be totally down for that. And I'm also totally with you when you say like you wouldn't mind like an event that we know in Metroid, that we already know, being referenced, in Sylux's origin story. I'm totally fine with that. I think that could actually be kind of cool depending on how that's handled. But yeah, it's mostly just that literal relationship type that I just really don't want them to go into, because I will physically roll my eyes into the back of my skull.
It would be hard to ever pull your eyes back out if that was the case. So I think you're right. I think they have enough self-awareness. Like, Other M didn't go down well. I think Nintendo knows that. Federation Force didn't go down well. I think Nintendo knows that. I think that people are very careful now about, when I say people, Nintendo's very careful now about like what Metroid fans want. We always talk about Metroid kind of being not the black sheep of the Nintendo family, but certainly not like the AAA franchise. And I think that's true, but I also think that Nintendo cares about the franchise enough to like not do that. You know what I mean? Like, so I would be very surprised if that was the case. I think what's probable is that we're just going to get a brand new character story, brand new events. I can't think of what that event would be off the top of my head that we know about where you could reference that. And if there is none, that's fine. We don't need to force one. I think you could just tell a compelling backstory at the beginning of the game, and that's okay.
For all we know, we might not even get like Sylux's origin story in this game.
Maybe
I have a feeling we will, but I mean, they could totally just skip that altogether and just be like, no, this is our new bad guy. He hates you. This is what he's doing now, and you got to stop him. And honestly, I'd be totally fine with that too.
Mm-hmm. I'll be honest with you. I'm more interested. I'm not as interested in Sylux's identity as learning why he hates the Federation so much. And maybe they're tied together. They probably are, but I think that's the far more compelling story. And seeing, again, I know you guys kind of hate when I say it, but man, I would love if like maybe Sylux isn't like a villain that gets off to Metroid Prime 4. Maybe it's him and Samus find some kind of common ground, and all of a sudden there's a new playable character going forward if you ever wanted to make a spin-off. I think that would be cool too.
Dak and I necessarily hate that idea. We just hate that happening in Prime 4. Like, we want Sylux to be an antagonist first, but I'm not opposed to him down the line getting redeemed and doing some sort of like, not even necessarily a team up, but like, the enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of deal. Like, I wouldn't mind that happening down the line, but like for Prime 4, no, I want him to be the hater. I need him to be the hater.
Make no mistake, like I think you fight Sylux multiple times in Prime 4, as you should. Like if you're gonna do that moment where like eventually maybe they stop wanting to kill each other. You got to build up to that, and it has to be earned. So like you have to go through your trials and tribulations first. So absolutely, I would hate if they start off just like, doing high fives and fist pounding and stuff like that. Like you have to earn that if you're going to do that. But I think that you can earn that in the game if you tell the right story. Now that being said, we did ask some of our listeners here for their thoughts. Basically, we asked for theories on Sylux, what you think their backstory might be, what you hope it is, what you hope it isn't. If you're wanting to see something specific in terms of gameplay. And we had a couple people respond back, and some of them are similar enough. So maybe we won't go into depth on every single answer here, but we'll definitely do as much as we can. And I guess we should just start off here. So we have a bunch of friends of our show here that replied on Twitter and Discord. Quest, so James Quest, shout out to you, buddy, playing Destiny. I hope that he's his own character that hates the feds for his own personal reasons. I think it would be really cheap if it's someone from Samus's past or character related to Samus in some way. Yep.
Pretty much what we just discussed.
Pretty much, yeah. That's definitely, I think, the overall sentiment among Metroid fans. Let's another response actually from Metroid Theorist here, and I'll retweet this over on the main account. But they actually linked a pretty cool video that is essentially an analysis of Sylux, saying like, and I haven't actually watched it yet, but essentially what they're saying is like, listen, there's a part of the video refuting the idea that Sylux is Ian Malkovich. Where did that even come from?
Does that need to be? I think it was just a random fan theory. Like there isn't really any evidence back in that theory. It's just a fan scenario.
Yeah.
Not even a theory, a fan scenario more than anything.
Like but I've seen that kind of gained a lot of steam, and I guess my theory on that is this: that like tropes in media would have you kind of say like, oh, we don't know who this character is. It must be somebody coming back from the dead, from our past. Kind of like Red Hood in Batman. Like that was Jason Todd, the second Robin, that was thought to be dead, right? There's a very finite amount of people in the Metroid series that are thought that they're confirmed to be dead. And Ian Malkovich just happens to be like the one that we know of off the top of our head. Like I don't even think canonically Samus had a brother, did she? I don't remember.
I can't, if it was if she did, it was probably like in the manga or something like that, but honestly I can't even remember.
Well, let's keep going on here. This is from Eon. Honestly, a little worried they'll get Sylux right. I think they meant to say get Sylux wrong.
Yeah.
I'd love to see Metroid get more story, and if Sylux is human, they can't really get away with him being silent, but after Other M, I'm a bit apprehensive. I really want Prime 4 to be good on narrative as much as gameplay. I think that's fair, and I think that Sylux is going to talk in this game. I don't know if it's going to be like human language, quote unquote, or like alien language, but either way, I think that that's fine. I think that Other M burned us a little bit in terms of like, we're a little bit gun shy. Like, there's nothing wrong with having Samus talk like a normal person. There's nothing wrong with characters talking like normal people. I really think that Other M, it's unfortunate because that's kind of what we're looking for in the series, is more focus on narrative, more focus on character development. It's unfortunate that the first crack at that didn't really pan out the way that everybody was wanting. And so it seems like we've almost reverted a little bit too much back into the silent but stoic but deadly cool Samus, because I probably would have had Samus speak a little bit more in Metroid Dread.
I mostly agree. I kind of disagree, but I'm like 80% like with you there.
Okay.
Especially in regards to like Metroid Other M kind of tainting a lot of, maybe future Metroid potential, if you will, because we're all in a, you, me, Zach, we all agree that Metroid Other M, it definitely doesn't deliver on its premise. But one thing we all do agree on is that while it doesn't deliver on its premise, it offers a lot of really cool, unique ideas that, even though they didn't work out in Other M, or maybe they weren't fleshed out enough, I would love to see them take a crack at again. And I think it would be a shame if, this kind of mediocre at best game, and I'm being very kind there, if that's where, the last time we ever saw those ideas. And so,
yeah.
And when I say it, and so voice acting is definitely like one of the things, is I absolutely think that you can have, regular, and I don't think you need like a heavy narration. So you don't need Samus to on monologues or, or anything like that. I always bring up the very first Halo game, Halo Combat Evolved, when I think of like my ideal Metroid voice acting. Master Chief, you don't really think of Master Chief's dialogue in that first game, but like he does talk. He talks several times. But he's very reserved. A lot of the background and side characters, they do most of the world building and the narrative delivery. But Chief still, when he's needed, he still butts in and has something to say. And I think Samus could absolutely play a similar role where she doesn't have to talk a lot by any means, but she also doesn't have to be banned from speaking outside of maybe one phrase. It is pretty cool in the context of Dread. It is pretty cool. The one time we do get to see her speak again, it's like in Chozo, and it's like, okay, that's a pretty cool excuse to get her to talk, and I like that. But I don't want Metroid to be constrained by that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean that moment in Dread is probably one of the best in the game, where she I cheered when she said like I'm gonna finish this in Chozo. Like that was awesome. But the game that always sticks out to me is Corruption, because that game just felt really unnatural that Samus wasn't talking, and most Metroid games don't have that involved. They don't have that problem where like there's no one really around for Samus to play off of. The Corruption to me was the game that felt really unnatural, and I think and hope that enough time has passed since then that we kind of have an understanding of like the tone and tenor of what we want Samus to sound like and how we want her to interact, and by that extension too, I would say the entire Metroid universe. And so, a long story short here, I do think that Sylux is going to talk. I think he's going to have stuff to say. He's going to need to talk if we're going to connect with him as a villain, as an anti-hero, whatever. He's going to need to tell the story. And I think that maybe this is just blind faith, but I think that they've learned enough from what Metroid fans want and don't want over the years to kind of get it right.
I trust Retro.
I trust Retro.
I also I'm not sure if Samus will speak or not in Prime 4. I'm pretty confident Sylux is going to speak, though.
Yeah.
I feel pretty confident in that one.
It'd be weird if he didn't, I think. But we'll see. Let's move on. This is from Nick. My theory is that he has some kind of personal beef with Samus from back when Samus was serving in the Galactic Federation military, as briefly seen in Metroid Other M. He's been building up his forces for years and years specifically to get revenge on Samus for some wrong she did to him. It's funny how, like, we all, I think, would agree that Metroid Other M missed the mark in terms of storytelling, and yet it's funny how much, like, our story theories reference back to Metroid Other M. I always think that that's curious. I was ready to kind of throw this theory out and say, like, well, that's not exactly, it kind of contradicts what we know in that Sylux hates the Galactic Federation rather than Samus herself. I think that the general belief is that he hates Samus because of her association with the Galactic Federation. But you know what? I will say maybe this is one of those instances where two things can be true at once. Maybe you can hate Samus and hate the Galactic Federation because you hate Samus, because something happened back then. So I'm not ready to completely throw this out. I don't think that it's super, super likely. If nothing else, for the fact that there's so little crossover between the 2D games and the Prime games and whatever the hell Other M is. Like, there's very little crossover between that.
Kind of going off what you said of, at this point we think Nintendo knows what Metroid fans want and don't want. I feel pretty confident Retro. Well, then again, I was just talking about, last week how they did incorporate some of those design elements from Other M into the Prime art design, and again they found a way to make it work. So maybe they don't. I'm gonna guess probably there isn't gonna be much in terms of Other M story references or anything like that. But I mean, maybe I'm not gonna put a 0 on the Samus's percentage meter. It's not gonna be high, but
I think that's fair. Like, on one hand, like with Sylux, so little. Like, kind of how can you put a 0 on it? But I don't know that this is gonna be. I wouldn't power rank this as like the most likely scenario here. Let's just put it that way. All right, next up here we got a comment from D. Sylux was originally a Federation member who caught whim of how the Federation reverse-engineered / manufactured Metroid Prime Dark Samus's power and became very overwhelmed with the Federation and Samus wanting to put a stop to the unspeakable power. As time went on, Sylux began understanding that the only power that is originally once was is being completely and utterly underutilized, including the Metroids. This goes on for a little bit. Basically, the gist of this theory is that, basically that he's the D is kind of saying here that Sylux is essentially realizing that he's the only one that can control this power, if I'm understanding correctly. So, I don't know. I don't know about this one.
It kind of is in line with what we see in Hunters. You know, Sylux is after the ultimate power, both because he doesn't think the Federation should be in control of it, and also because he wants to use it against the Federation. So I don't know. It's vague. It's vague enough to where I'm on board. I'll just say that.
I like the idea that Sylux could be like a part of the Galactic Federation or a former part of the Galactic Federation, and that maybe they're like rebelling against it. I guess I just like in my head, this just makes so much more sense in the 2D series though, where you have that built-in distrust of the Federation. Like they seem like they seem like a pretty stand-up organization so far in the Prime series, and I mean that could change, right? Like that could easily change, but I don't know. In my head, I'm just like, man, this fits like a glove if this was Metroid 6.
That is the thing, because I feel like, if that is going to be Sylux's reasoning, and let's say that is, we get that reveal in this game, like why Sylux has hated the Federation all this long, I would imagine that Samus would also get wind of that information. But the problem is, Samus isn't supposed to be wary of this until Other M at the absolute earliest. And, obviously, some people, we can go back to the 20X9 or whatever. Some people technically are theorizing that this could be after Super Metroid, and I guess after Other M. I think that'd be great. That theory.
I really do think it'd be great. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think it'd be awesome if it did.
But that timeline for that kind of story, it does pose a bit of a problem there, and so yeah, that is my big hesitation there. But otherwise, I like the sound of it on paper.
Okay. Well, I kind of like the sound of this one on paper, actually. This is from Space Mom Callie. My running theory is that they were another survivor of K2L and upset at the Galactic Federation now for not doing anything about the attack, and resentment towards Samus and the Chozo as she was picked up and the Chozo were allied with the Galactic Federation as well. I don't hate that.
I kind of dig it, and it kind of ties back into what you wanted, tying in a previous established Metroid event and recontextualizing it, but again without that literal blood relationship. I don't know. I'm on board with that.
I'm on board with that too. Actually, I think that's kind of cool. It gives me what was the villain in Civil War, Captain America Civil War? What was that dude's name?
Baron von something. Well, I can't remember his name. I love the actor that plays him.
He's great at whatever that dude's name is. It kind of reminds me of a similar story almost to him, except this version Sylux can kick ass instead of needing to do Iron Man to do it for him. I kind of dig that actually. I like that because really in game we haven't explored a lot of like the K2L stuff. Like it's barely been touched on at all, and that could be cool for not only Sylux but Samus as well. Now I don't know if I'd want to spend a ton of time going over those flashbacks and stuff like that, and maybe it would hit a little bit better if we had more establishment about what happened on K2L, but I think that could be kind of cool. All right, well let's keep going here. We got a few more to do. This is from Zev, a victim of the Federation Army faction, the bad guys of Fusion and Other M. His suit and equipment were explicitly an attempt to replicate Samus' own, so I think he was experimented on by his faction who hates the Galactic Federation. I think that's actually kind of a cool idea as well. But again, the only thing that doesn't really add up, at least as far as we know so far, is the timeline for the Splinter Cell, if you will, in the Galactic Federation. Doesn't quite line up for when we think the game is going to be taking place. And honestly, I guess I guess if it takes place after Super Metroid, the Other M takes place after Super Metroid before Fusion. I guess if it took place after Super Metroid, maybe it lines up, but I don't know.
Yeah, pretty much echoing your same thoughts. I was just Googling because I really wanted to know. It's Baron von Zemo, who's the villain in Civil War, and he's played by Daniel Bruhl. So yeah, Daniel Bruhl, fantastic actor. Love him.
Bon Zemo. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's just do a few more, and then we'll call it a wrap here. This one's kind of interesting. This is from Dealnix. Here's my theory. When Phase is destroyed at the end of Metroid Prime 3, the Federation tries to synthesize Phazon with some success. This attracts Sylux, who was hired by Ravenbeak to make Phazon enhanced Mocktroids. I want more connections between the Prime series and the main story.
I'm sorry. That feels like a very fan fiction. That is fan fiction if I've ever heard it.
Yeah, that one feels like a step too far for me, I think. Although it would be pretty badass to see Ravenbeak show up in a Prime game for sure, but I don't know. I think that would be a step too far.
Yeah.
And I guess I feel like it doesn't make sense either, because like Phase is clearly destroyed after. So we already know Sylux and have established his hatred of the Galactic Federation.
Yeah. Kind of going off that, it feels like the equivalent of like, smashing your action figures together. And when I say that, I'm not trying to like disparage you. I am not a good story writer myself. If I tried to come up with a story idea, it would probably be something similar, akin to like, taking all of my expensive Metroid figures and just smashing them together. Mm-hmm. So like, when I say that, I'm not trying to disparage you. I'm sorry, but yeah. From just hearing that, yeah, not the direction that I personally would head in.
I think it has a bit too much going on, although I totally agree. I would love more connection between the 2D games and the Prime games. That's why I love Proteus Ridley in Samus Returns, actually. Mm-hmm. Like one of my favorite bosses.
It's more so I want more references of the Prime games in the 2D games, because I feel like the Prime games already do like a pretty good job of like, referencing, Metroid / Metroid Zero Mission. In Prime 3, you get a little bit of foreshadowing to Metroid 2 with some of the pirates talking about evolved SR-388 forms, which I think is really cool. So I think the Prime games actually already do a pretty good job of that. It's mostly the 2D games I want to see like do some more Prime references.
Well, I think the Prime games are pigeonholed too, because for whatever reason, there's this galactic law that says they have to take place in between Metroid 1 and 2, so you can't reference a ton of other stuff in the 2D games either, so they reference what they can, but there's only so many times you can say, hey, we fought Samus on Zebes and lost. This is what happened. So yeah, I do want to read this one just because I felt like it was a bit of validity towards me. This is from Lizart. I want Sylux to be a great antagonist, but not the main villain. Also, maybe playable. Well, hey, I'm fine if Sylux is the main villain. I think that's totally fine. I just want the guy to live throughout the game so that maybe we can link it back up in Metroid Prime 5. Who knows? I
agree with that. I agree with that, regardless whether or not we team up with him. Because again, one of my the things I don't like about Metroid Dread is, Ravenbeak is such an awesome antagonist and they just kill him off, and it's like, well,
yeah.
I mean, granted, it's Metroid, Ridley's come back God knows how many times. They could bring back Ravenbeak if they really wanted to, but I don't think they are, and it sucks because, I think there's a lot more we can do with Ravenbeak, but we're probably not going to see him ever again. And so, yeah.
Unless he hires Sylux, I mean.
Yeah. So yeah, I really do hope that like, and I feel confident that we will see more of Sylux. I feel at the very least that they're gonna build him up very similarly to how Dark Samus was in the trilogy, and I think that he's gonna be growing either more powerful, or that that's something that you have theorized happens where he does become a little more closely aligned to us by like the end of Prime 5 or maybe Prime 6 or something, and then we take on the real big bad threat of this trilogy.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. I had to read this one. This is from Dodger Roger Duck. If anyone says Adam's brother, I'm getting my glove to slap someone.
your power glove.
Ian. All right, 2 more and then we'll get out of here. This is over on Discord from New Supreme Man. I'm hoping for Sylux to be something more than just a normal human. In Hunters, he has a dinosaur roar that comes out when injured, and I would like for them to keep with that, making his species something more animalistic or monstrous. I think that's kind of cool. Let's keep going. I like the theory of him being betrayed by the Federation, either being experimented on or having his planet attacked or destroyed. I also like the idea of Sylux maybe being a special operative of the Federation that was left behind or set up to die due to shady Galactic Federation shenanigans. Yeah, I think all that sounds awesome so far. I'm fine with either of those scenarios here. Gameplay-wise, I've always thought of Sylux as the kind to stalk and ambush his enemies. I think him having the ability to pop up and attack you at random throughout the game would be fun and interesting idea to add on to that. I think his suit gaining the ability to camouflage would be cool as both a detail of his ability set and also as a gimmick within the boss fight, forcing you to switch to a thermal visor or something else to see him. You know what? I'm pretty much down for honestly everything you said. I think that sounds cool.
Absolutely. I do hope they do something regarding the camouflage, because I do also want to see that again, tying into like, how does he blend in, with the bright blue. Anyways, but yeah, I think it would be really cool, especially from a gameplay perspective. I do hope they do something a little more than just like, oh, switch to the visor to see him, because we've already seen that in like all the other 3 games. They can still do that, but I want to see them play around more with the camouflage. Like maybe you are helpless against that. Maybe you have to use other factors of the environment. Like maybe
Yeah.
Like I don't know, maybe you have to like, use your grapple beam to like, make his short circuit his camo so that you can actually see him, or use some aspect of the environment to like kick up dust on his actual model so that his camo doesn't protect him. Something like, kind of similar almost to Predator to a degree.
Yeah, I think that's cool. I agree with you. It would feel, I don't know. It would feel a little bit passe, I guess, if all you needed to do is just quickly switch your visor. Like we've definitely seen that with Dark Samus, with Gendrada, with a couple of different bosses. So I would, and I don't know what, but maybe something else. Maybe it's like you have to phase into a different reality, or maybe you have to. I don't know, but I think that'd be cool. I wanted to end on this because I thought that this was kind of a jokey one, but the more I thought about it, the more I actually don't hate it, and I feel like it's kind of pertinent right now. Because I saw that all of you guys in the Discord were pretty excited about a recent reveal that happened at a recent Comic-Con where they announced like 18 new Marvel movies, and one of the movies was the new Avengers, and they got a familiar face playing Doctor Doom, and that is Robert Downey Jr. And I'm sure it's going to be like some alternate version of Tony Stark, and I'm tying this into Sylux by saying, Harky Man says, Sylux is Samus, but from a dystopian alternate future. And I think immediately when you hear that, you kind of like roll your eyes and say like, ha ha ha, that's funny. I'm gonna be honest with you here. If the idea of this game is like you're going into alternate universes, or you're going to beyond the known universe, and that is like a black hole kind of gimmick, I think you could do worse than having Sylux be like an alternate version of Samus that maybe is her life went down a different path and she's hell-bent on revenge. Now, have you kind of arguably been there and done that before? Yes, you've had SAX, you've had Dark Samus, you've certainly had enough of the alternate versions of Samus, but I think that this would be different enough that I think it could be cool. Would it be my first choice? I don't know, but I wouldn't hate it either. I think that could be, I don't know, interesting, I guess. And it also opens up the gameplay possibilities where, like, maybe Sylux goes back to her timeline and you're playing in that world. And maybe it's not dystopian necessarily, but, like, certainly a different type of universe that we know about. I think there's potential in that idea, to be honest.
Potential. I think I'd rather that not happen, though. It's I don't know, to me it feels like an acquired taste, and some acquired tastes, like I used to hate Jägermeister. Now I don't want to say I love Jägermeister, but I accept it. I accept it for what it is.
I have to tell you, and, actually, that's my usual, like, it's that and tequila if I'm drinking, which is very very rare, by the way, because I can't hold my liquor very well. But if I am, it's usually frozen Jaeger.
Frozen Jaeger does go good, but
no bomb
tequila.
Though. No bomb.
Oh no. But yeah, tequila. Man, I gotta be desperate if I'm drinking tequila, man. That's a bad time for me. But anyways, we're getting off topic. Point is, at a glance, it does have potential, but I kind of just rather them just not do that. And for the similar reasons that you mentioned, it does steer a little bit too close, to those Dark Echo versions of Samus. And I feel like while there is potential, there's also a lot of potential for that to go horribly. And the amount of, and like, I feel like there is a lot more interesting things you could do with Sylux that aren't as risky as doing something like that in the first place. And then also kind of talking about Doomsday just briefly. I already talked about in the Discord. Also not really my first choice of, what I wanted in an Avengers film, but it's interesting. I'm more interested in the fact that they got the Russos and to direct and Christopher McFeely to write, because I feel like everything that they've done together has been fantastic, and so I'm excited to see them coming back together. But in terms of the premise, I'm kind of on it. I'll wait and see.
Yeah, we'll see. I think I'd actually be really high on this idea if we didn't have Dark Samus already and we didn't have SAX. Like, because I think it's kind of an intriguing idea, and if you're gonna do it, like the game where you're presumably going into alternate realities is the perfect place for it. But yeah, I do think that we've kind of seen it to a certain extent already. So I will just have to wait and see what actually transpires. I wouldn't hate it though if it happened. I wouldn't hate it. I don't know that I'd be like, oh wow, like blown away, but I wouldn't hate it. So we'll see. I'd like it a lot more than Ian Malkovich. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, we can agree on that at least.
Yeah, I think honestly,
I'll take it over. I'll take it over giant Samus kaiju battle any day.
Robert Downey Jr. as Sylux would be better than Ian Malkovich. They froze that man and brought him back in the future or something. I don't know. But yeah, so there we go. Our exploration into Sylux as a character, what little we know about the bounty hunter, and what little we know about him in universe, as well as some behind the scenes notes and some of our theories about who, what, why, what is going to be going on with this character in Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. I have no doubt that we will learn a great deal about the hunter, if not before the game drops, and certainly after. So, and we'll definitely be talking about Sylux when more information is revealed here. I'm sure that we'll get a trailer probably early next year that we can sink our teeth into. So, yeah, just wanted to thank everybody for submitting their theories. Even if we didn't think that some of them were super likely, it's still awesome that you guys put yourself out there and submitted. So everybody that did, thank you so much for being a part of the show. And yeah, I'm stoked to see what's going on with Sylux. Like, this is a 20-year mystery that is finally going to get unraveled here in the next year. So really, really exciting.
Yeah, it's super exciting. I think all of us popped off really hard, and for a lot of us, it was our favorite part of the trailer when Sylux did show up. It was like we kind of knew it was going to happen, but to finally have that hard confirmation that we're finally exploring into this really interesting aspect of the Metroid universe, and it's playing a big role in a main entry, like it's exciting times, man.
Damn, that was awesome when Sylux came through. Like, holy moly, that was so cool. All right, well, that is going to do it for us. We'd love if you guys continue to let us know your theories about Sylux. Let us know over on Twitter. Let us know over on Discord. And come join our Discord. We have tons and tons and tons of Metroid fans that have been going nuts and talking Metroid. And we had one of our new fans join the Discord, and you could just tell they've been waiting to talk about Metroid for so long. It was cool to see. So come and talk Metroid with us over in our Discord channel. We'd love to have you there. The link is in the description. Also, check us out wherever you get your podcasts. Go like, subscribe, recommend, rate, review, all that kind of good stuff. If you got a Metroid fan in your life, tell them where they can get their weekly Metroid fix. There is no other podcasting about the Metroid series weekly. So, hey, show us some love. OmegaMetroid.com has you covered if you're playing any of the Metroid games and you need guides or strategies or maps or whatever have you. We're about to post some really, really cool stuff over on OmegaMetroid.com, actually, so keep your eyes peeled to that in the next, I don't know, maybe like the next week or two. We'll have a bunch of new stuff going up on there. And we have a Patreon too. We're actually going to be recording a new episode of the Great Metroidarium ranking tomorrow night. That is patreon.com/spnet, so make sure that you are checking that out. That is going to do it for us, my friends. So thank you for listening, and until next week, we'll see you then. Take care.